It was early morning. The sky was still gray and the city was just waking up. People were rushing to work, cars were honking, and the cold wind touched every face. But in the middle of that busy street, a young boy stood near the traffic light. His name was Sam. He was no older than 12. His clothes were old and his shoes had holes, but his hands were always moving, wiping, scrubbing, polishing. He cleaned the windows of cars when they stopped at the red light. He didn't ask for money. He didn't speak much. He only gave a small, tired smile and moved to the next car. Most people ignored him. Some rolled up their windows. A few gave him coins. Sam never complained. He just kept working. For him, it was not just about earning. It was about surviving. His mother was sick and medicine was expensive. He had no father. He was the man of the house now, even if he was just a boy. But that day, something was different. A man stood across the street watching him quietly. The man wore an old coat. His shoes were dirty and his beard was unshaved. He looked tired, almost lost. But there was something sharp in his eyes, like he was searching for something he had lost long ago. His name was Mr. Blake. Years ago, he was one of the richest men in the city. He owned a tech company that made headlines. People called him a genius, a leader, a builder of dreams. But dreams can fall, and so did his. A few bad decisions, a trusted partner who betrayed him, and a cruel market crash took everything away. Money, fame, friends, all gone. Now he had no home, no business, and no one to talk to. But that morning when he saw Sam working in the cold, something touched his heart. He stood there for many minutes, just watching the boy move from one car to another. There was pain in Sam's eyes, but also strength. He wasn't asking for pity. He was just doing his best, silently, patiently, with a kind smile. Finally, Mr. Blake crossed the road and walked toward the boy. Sam was finishing the window of a small red car. The light turned green. The car drove off. Sam turned to leave, but saw the man standing near him. "Hey there," Mr. Blake said softly. Sam looked up. He didn't know the man, but he nodded politely. Mr. Blake reached into his pocket and pulled out a single crumpled dollar. It was all he had. He handed it to the boy. Sam looked at the dollar, then at the man's face. He didn't see a rich person. He saw someone broken, just like his mother, just like himself. Still, he took the dollar gently and smiled. Then, Sam said something. Just one line. But that one line changed everything. It was simple, almost whispered, but clear enough. "Even broken glass can shine in the light." Mr. Blake froze. He felt like the ground under him had disappeared. His heart beat faster. His eyes widened. He stared at the boy, shocked. What did you say?" he asked, his voice shaking. Sam didn't answer. He just smiled again and walked away to clean another car. Mr. Blake stood still, like a statue, for a long moment. That line, those words, echoed in his head again and again. Even broken glass can shine in the light. It was like a forgotten memory had come back, a line from long ago, something he used to say when he first started his company, something he believed in when he had nothing, when his only office was a garage and his only friend was hope. That one line was written on the first page of his old notebook. He hadn't seen that notebook in years. How did this boy know it? Why did it hit so deep? Was it a sign, a message, or just a strange accident? Mr. Blake didn't know. But in that moment, for the first time in years, he felt something inside. Not pain, not regret, but a small spark of hope. As Sam moved to the next car, the wind blew gently. The city kept moving, loud and fast. But Mr. Blake just stood there watching the boy, wondering if this meeting was just random, or if this little boy with a kind heart and a powerful line was about to change his life forever. Mr. Blake walked home that night, if the old bench under the bridge could still be called a home. His steps were slow and his eyes distant. The city lights blinked, cars passed, and people talked all around him. But in his mind, there was only one thing playing again and again. Even broken glass can shine in the light. That one sentence, spoken by a window washing boy, had shaken something inside him. It wasn't just a nice quote, it was familiar. Too familiar. He sat down on the cold bench and took out a small blanket from his bag. It did little against the wind. He wrapped it around himself and looked up at the stars. He hadn't done that in years. He closed his eyes and memories came flooding back. Memories of when he was a young man with dreams. When he worked 16 hours a day building something no one believed in. When he had hope. And suddenly he remembered. That line, that exact line, was something he himself had written many years ago. He had scribbled it in his old leather notebook, the first week he started his company. Back then, he didn't have fancy offices or rich investors. He only had one table, one chair, and an old laptop, and he had written those words to remind himself, even broken glass can shine in the light. They meant, no matter how broken you are, if you believe, you can still shine. But life changed. Success came fast. He built his empire. He forgot the pain. He forgot the struggle. And slowly. He forgot those words too. Until today. Until that boy and that poor tired boy reminded him. Mr. Blake opened his eyes. He couldn't sleep. He had to see that notebook again. The next morning, just after sunrise, he made his way to an old storage unit. One of the few things still in his name. It was dusty, locked, and almost forgotten. He opened it slowly. Inside were old boxes, broken chairs, rusted files, and in one small corner, under a torn jacket, he found it. The leather notebook. His hands shook as he opened it. The first page was yellow and torn, but the writing was still there. And at the very top, in bold letters, it read, "Even broken glass can shine in the light." He smiled, and then he cried. Not just because of the memory, but because that same line had now come back to him. Through a boy who shouldn't have known it at all. He sat on the floor of the storage room thinking, this couldn't be a random thing. The city was big. Why that boy? Why that line? It had to mean something. That afternoon, Mr. Blake returned to the street where he had first seen Sam. He waited near the traffic light. The same cars came and went, but the boy was not there. He asked a tea vendor nearby. The little boy who cleans windows. Have you seen him? The man nodded. Yes, he comes early morning, then moves to the bus station by lunch. Mr. Blake rushed there, and he found him. Sam was cleaning a bus window, his small hands red from the cold, but he still smiled at people. Blake walked up slowly. Hey, it's me again. Sam looked and smiled. You came back? Blake knelt down. I need to ask you something. That line you told me yesterday, where did you learn it? Sam blinked. You liked it? Blake nodded. Yes, very much. I used to say it too, a long time ago. Sam looked down. His voice became soft. My mom used to say it. She said it every time I felt sad. Said it helped her too when she was younger. Blake's eyes widened. Your mom? Sam nodded. She worked in a company once, but then got fired. She said the world can break you, but the light always finds a way. Blake's heart skipped. Beat. What company did she work for? He asked. Sam replied. It was called Bright Core Systems, I think, but she doesn't talk about it much. Blake felt the air leave his chest. Bright Core Systems was his company, his old company, the one he had built, the one he had lost. And now, this boy who gave him hope, was the son of someone who had once worked for him. Was this just chance? Or had life brought him face to face with a part of his past he needed to fix? Blake stood up slowly, his mind spinning. He looked down at the boy. Would you take me to your mother? He asked. Sam hesitated, then nodded. She's sick, Sam said. But I think she'd want to see you. Sam led Mr. Blake through narrow streets, the kind where sunlight rarely reached. The buildings were old, paint peeled from the walls. The air smelled like dust, smoke, and silence. They passed tiny homes, each squeezed between others like forgotten books on an old shelf. Dogs barked in the distance. People watched from behind curtains. A few whispered when they saw Blake's worn-out face beside the little boy. After 10 minutes of walking, Sam stopped outside a small door made of thin wood. Looked weak, like a strong wind could break it. "This is home," Sam said quietly. Blake nodded but didn't speak. He was nervous. His heart was beating fast. Sam pushed the door open slowly. Inside, the room was small and dim. A torn curtain hung over the window. There were 2 chairs, a table with 3 legs, and a thin mattress on the floor. On the mattress lay a woman, pale, coughing, and thin. Her hands trembled as she tried to sit up. "Mom," Sam said gently, "someone's here to see you." She turned her head slowly. Her eyes were tired, but sharp. For a second, she stared at Blake. Then her breath caught in her throat. Her lips moved, forming a name she hadn't spoken in years. "Mr. Blake?" He stepped forward. "Hello, Anna." Tears filled her eyes. "You remember me," she whispered. "I do now," Blake said. "You worked in my design department. You were one of the best." Anna laughed softly, but it turned into a cough. "That feels like another life." Blake looked around the room. The sadness in it. The silence. It hurt his chest. "How did this happen?" he asked quietly. Anna looked at him, then at her son. "After the company closed, things went downhill. I lost my job. My savings didn't last. Then I got sick. Sam tried everything. He cleans windows, he skips meals, he brings home every coin he can." She looked away, ashamed. "I never wanted him to live like this." Blake sat down beside her. His voice was heavy. "I didn't know. I lost everything too. The company, my home, everything. But yesterday your son reminded me who I used to be." Anna looked at Sam and smiled. "He reminds me too, every day." Blake leaned forward. "That line he said, did you teach him that?" Anna nodded. "Yes, I remembered it from a speech you once gave. You said it in the office when we were working late one night. I never forgot it. Even broken glass can shine in the light." Blake wiped his eyes. "It saved me yesterday. It reminded me that I'm not done, that maybe I can still do something good." Anna touched his hand. "Then do it. Not just for me, for all the people who still believe." Light. Later that day, Blake stood outside their home. The sun was setting, but his heart felt awake for the first time in years. He looked at Sam. "You gave me more than I gave you," he said. "Now it's my turn." Sam tilted his head. "What will you do?" Blake smiled. "I'm going to rebuild. From scratch. And I want your mom to be part of it. She was once my brightest star." Sam's eyes widened. "But she's sick." "She can still guide," Blake said. "And so can you." Over the next few weeks, something changed. Blake visited old friends, called former employees, and gathered people who once believed in him. Most of them had moved on, but a few, a small few, still remembered the fire he once had. He borrowed a tiny office space above a bakery. The windows were dirty, the walls had cracks, but Blake smiled. "This is enough," he said. "This is where it begins." He called it Lightspark, a new name, a new start, but built on the same heart. Anna, now resting in a better clinic thanks to Blake, helped from her bed, giving design ideas, reviewing early models, and even writing small notes of hope. Sam came after school and helped clean the office, make tea, and sometimes just sit and listen. One night, Blake handed him a notebook, a brand new one. "Write your ideas here," he said. "They might change someone's life." Sam smiled. "Like yours changed mine?" Blake nodded. "Exactly like that. But something was coming. A big investor, one who had once rejected Blake years ago, suddenly became interested. A meeting was set. Everything depended on that one presentation. If it failed, Lightspark would fall. If it worked, everything could change. The room was cold. Mr. Blake sat at a plain table in a cheap meeting hall, wearing a borrowed suit and holding his notes with trembling fingers. Across from him sat 3 men. Clean suits, sharp eyes, quiet expressions. One of them was Victor Crane, a man who had once laughed at Blake's ideas. Now, years later, Victor's company was struggling too. He had agreed to listen, not because he believed, but because curiosity pulled him in. "You have 15 minutes, Victor said, glancing at his watch. Blake took a deep breath. The old nerves came back. But then, he remembered Sam's smile and Anna's words. He stood up, placed the notebook on the table, and began. "Lightspark," he said, "is not just a company. It's a reminder that even the broken can shine again." The first slide showed designs. Simple, clean, beautiful. New technology for low-cost smart panels that could bring light into poor homes using only scraps and recycled glass. Victor raised an eyebrow. Blake continued, "These aren't just ideas. They're real, cheap, tested, ready to build." He tapped. "A blueprint. Made by the same woman your company let go 6 years ago when she fell ill." Victor blinked. "And improved by her son. A boy who cleans windows to feed his mother. A boy who still smiles even when life gives him nothing." The room went quiet. Blake looked straight into Victor's eyes. "You've seen my fall. You've watched me lose everything. But now I'm back, not with pride but with purpose. I don't want your charity. I want a chance." He closed the notebook. "I need $50,000 to begin. We'll triple that in 6 months. Not just in money, but in meaning." Victor leaned back, his face unreadable. One of the men beside him whispered something, then handed him a paper. Blake's heart pounded. Victor stood. "I'll give you a call," he said coldly. "That'll be all." The meeting ended. Blake walked out alone. Outside, the wind was biting. The streets looked grayer than ever, and for a moment Blake felt the old weight again, the one he carried the day he lost his empire. But then he heard footsteps. "Mr. Blake," it was Sam, running up with a scarf in hand. "I thought you—" "Might be cold," the boy said. Blake took it slowly, then smiled. "Thank you, Sam. Did it go well?" Blake looked up at the cloudy sky. "I don't know, but I spoke from the heart." Sam tilted his head. "That's all that matters, right?" Blake nodded. "Yes, that's all that matters." 2 days. No call. On the third morning, Blake sat in the small Lightspark office watching the door. The phone was silent. Anna, still in her clinic bed, had sent him a hopeful message. "No matter what happens, I'm proud of you." But the silence grew louder. Until, ring. Blake jumped. He grabbed the phone. "Hello?" It was Victor's, voice calm, cold. "We'll fund you," he said. "But under one condition." Blake held his breath. "What condition?" "You take me on as your silent partner," Victor said. "No control, just a small share. I want to see if you really can turn broken glass into gold." Blake closed his eyes. He whispered, "Deal." The news spread quickly. Lightspark had funding. Within a week, the office had new lights, new tables, and fresh hope. Sam helped set up every day after school. Anna's bed was moved into a better room, and she now spoke to the team through video calls. Blake looked at his small team. 3 old employees, 2 young designers, and 1 teenage boy with big dreams. "Let's build," he said, "and let's do it with light." But the past wasn't done with Blake yet. One morning, a letter arrived at the office with no sender's name. It was sealed in red wax. Inside was only one sentence. "You may have rebuilt your company, but you haven't fixed what you destroyed." Blake stared at it. Who sent it? What did it mean? His hands trembled. The light was back, but now a shadow had returned. Blake stared at the letter again. "You may have rebuilt your company, but you haven't fixed what you destroyed." No signature, no return address, just red wax, thick, sealed with a strange symbol, a circle with a crack through it. It looked like shattered glass. He sat alone in the Lightspark office, the morning, light falling across his desk. The door opened. Sam walked in, holding 2 paper cups of tea. "I brought you the strong one," the boy said, grinning. Blake forced a smile, but Sam noticed the tension in his eyes. "What's wrong?" Blake slowly handed him the letter. Sam read it silently, then looked up. "Who sent this?" "I don't know," Blake said quietly. "But whoever it is, they know me and they're angry." That night, Blake couldn't sleep. He walked through the small, quiet office. Machines hummed. Papers rustled in the fans. Breeze. He stopped at an old filing cabinet. Most of his past had been burned away when his empire collapsed. But there were still pieces. Memories. Mistakes. He opened the drawer and pulled out an old file labeled Project Horizon, cancelled. Inside were designs for a luxury building meant to rise in the middle of a poor neighborhood. Blake remembered the deal. Back then, he hadn't cared who it hurt, only the money it would bring. People had protested, families were pushed out, shops were closed, and in the end the project was never finished. It drained his funds, stained his name, and destroyed. Dozing, he whispered to himself, This is what they're talking about. The next morning, Blake sat beside Anna's hospital bed. She looked stronger now. Her cheeks had color again and her voice was clearer. He handed her the letter. Her face fell. I remember this, she said. After that project, people lost everything. A man named Jonas was one of them. He had a small school there. You promised to rebuild it, but the company collapsed and you vanished. Blake closed his eyes. I was blind. I kept chasing more and I left people behind. Anna placed a hand over his. Then fix it, Blake. Don't just build Lightspark. Make things right. Later that week, Blake returned to the neighborhood, where Project Horizon had failed. Sam came with him. The place was still broken. Empty buildings. Walls covered in graffiti. Children played near trash heaps. The air smelled of smoke and sadness. A group of men watched Blake with cold eyes. One stepped forward. Didn't expect to see you here. His voice was rough, older, angry. I'm looking for Jonas, Blake said calmly. The man narrowed his eyes. Why? To apologize, Blake replied. And to fix what I broke. The man didn't smile, but he nodded once. Follow me. They entered a small building. Inside, wooden bookshelves leaned sideways. A chalkboard was cracked. Old chairs lined the walls. It had once been a school. Now it looked like a ghost of hope. At the back sat Jonas. His beard was gray now. His back bent, but his eyes were sharp. Mr. Blake, he said coldly. Alive, after all. I'm sorry, Blake said right away. I left a lot of damage behind, and I want to make it right. Jonas didn't answer. He just stared. Then he pointed at Sam. You brought a child into this. Blake sat alone in the Lightspark office, the lights dim, the air still. He replayed the voice message again. You think this makes you a hero? You haven't seen the end yet. No name, no number, just the voice, deep, angry, and calm. 2. Calm. He leaned back in his chair, breathing slowly. This wasn't just someone angry about the past. This was personal. The next morning, Blake met Anna at the hospital again. He showed her the recording. She listened in silence. That voice. It's not familiar, she whispered. But this isn't just about business, Blake. Someone wants you to stay down. He nodded. And I think I know who it might be. Who? Blake hesitated, then said, My old partner, Grant Voss. Years ago, Blake and Grant had built their empire together. They were young, ambitious, and hungry for power. But when the company began to fall, Blake had pulled out all the money he could and left. Grant had stayed, hoping to rebuild, but he was buried under the debt Blake left behind. After that, he disappeared. No one saw or heard from him again, until now. Later that evening, Sam found Blake sitting on the office steps, staring into the night. You okay? The boy asked, sitting beside him. Blake looked at him and smiled weakly. When you're young, you think money is everything. But sometimes it's your mistakes that follow you, not your success. Sam tilted his head. Then fix the mistake. Blake nodded. That's what I'm trying to do. But what if he's trying to stop you? Then I'll stand my ground. Sam smiled. Good. 2 days later, a package arrived. No name, just a small black box. Blake opened it carefully. Inside was a folded photo, old, torn. It showed Blake and Grant standing together in front of a tall building, smiling. On the back, someone had written, This is what you took from me. Underneath the photo was a USB drive. Blake plugged it into his laptop and opened the only file, It. A video. Grant appeared on screen. Older, angrier, eyes full of fire. You ran, Blake. When everything crumbled, you took what you could and left me to drown. I lost everything. My home, my family, my name. Now you're back. Acting like a savior. Building schools, smiling for the cameras, but I know the truth. And soon everyone else will too. I've kept records, emails, files, proof of what you did. You have 72 hours to shut Lightspark down, or I'll release everything to the public, and this time, you won't get back up. The screen went black. Blake's hands shook. He looked at Anna on the video call. She stared at him in silence. Is it true? She asked gently. Yes, Blake said, ashamed. I did pull money out before the company collapsed. It was legal, but it wasn't right. She nodded slowly. Then tell the truth before he does. You've already started over. Don't stop now. The next day, Blake held a press conference. He stood alone in front of cameras, reporters, and lights. His voice was steady. There's something I need to say. He told the world about the fall of his empire, how he ran when things got bad, how his choices hurt others. He didn't hide it. I'm not the man I used to be, he said, but I'm trying to be better. I'm rebuilding, not for myself, but for those I left behind. He ended with one simple line. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm not running anymore. The video spread fast. Some people called him brave, others called him a criminal. But something unexpected happened. The next morning, the school in the old neighborhood received its first full funding donation, enough to build classrooms, buy books, and hire teachers. From who? Anonymous. But Blake had a feeling it was Grant, maybe not as a friend, but as someone who finally saw the truth. That night, Blake sat with Sam outside the new school building. The boy leaned against him, tired but smiling. You didn't hide, Sam said. You stood up. Blake looked at the stars above them. I learned that from a boy who washed windows and smiled even when the world gave him nothing. But even as peace returned, one final challenge waited. The opening ceremony of the school was only days away, and in the shadows one last storm was coming. Someone had been watching everything, and they weren't done. The big day had come. The school stood tall, clean, and bright. Once a broken building, now full of life. Colorful banners hung across the gates. Children laughed in new uniforms. The air smelled of fresh paint and new beginnings. Cameras were everywhere. The opening ceremony of Lightspark Community School was about to begin. Blake adjusted his suit in the mirror. He looked different now. Not richer, but wiser. His eyes held something deeper than success. Sam waited for him outside, holding a small notebook in his hand. Ready? The boy asked. Blake smiled. Only if you are. People gathered. News. Reporters, local families, even workers who helped rebuild the place. Anna sat in a wheelchair near the front, smiling proudly. A stage had been set up. Blake stepped up to the microphone. He looked around at the faces, the old, the young, the forgotten, and the hopeful. He took a deep breath. 3 months ago, I was standing on a sidewalk with nothing in my pocket. I had lost everything. I was angry at the world. But then, a boy with nothing gave me something more powerful than money. He looked at Sam. A lesson. The crowd turned to the boy, who blushed and looked at his shoes. Blake continued. That one line he said to me changed my life. Sometimes even a small light can show the way in darkness. The crowd clapped gently, but then Sam tugged at Blake's jacket. Can I say something too? Blake nodded and stepped aside. Sam stood on a small wooden box to reach the microphone. He held his notebook but didn't open it. My name is Sam, he began. I used to wash windows, not because I had to, but because I wanted to feel useful. I didn't want pity, I wanted purpose. He looked around. Mr. Blake gave me that. He listened. He changed. And today, this school isn't just his gift. To us, it's our gift to each other. He paused, then smiled. And I have one last gift. He pulled out a small envelope from his notebook and handed it to Blake. Blake opened it carefully. Inside was a photo. It showed Sam, Blake, and Anna, standing together, smiling in front of the new school. On the back, written in Sam's neat handwriting, You gave me a school, I gave you a reason. Now let's give others a future. Blake held back tears. He hugged Sam tightly as the crowd clapped louder. But just as the moment felt complete, a black car pulled up near the gate. The door opened, and Grant Voss stepped out. Everyone turned. The air grew tense. Blake walked forward, heart pounding. Grant looked thinner, his face older. But his eyes weren't angry anymore. He stepped onto the stage and took the mic. The crowd went silent. He spoke slowly. I built an empire with Blake. When it fell, I blamed him. I stayed in the shadows, angry, bitter, broken. He looked at Sam, but then I watched what he built with you. He turned to Blake. You faced the truth, you changed. And because of that, so will I. He pulled out a check. This is a donation from what little I still own, to help build 2 more schools like this. One in every neighborhood we once forgot. Gasps spread through the crowd. Blake stepped forward and shook Grant's hand. There were no more enemies, only 2 men who had fallen and now stood again. That night, when the lights dimmed and the guests left, Blake sat on the school steps beside Sam. You saved me, Blake said quietly. Sam looked up. You saved me too. Blake pulled something from his coat, a small golden coin, shiny, heavy. He handed it to Sam. What's this? Blake smiled. My last dollar, the one I gave you. I kept it all this time. Sam's eyes widened. But I thought, it's yours now, Blake said. One day, when someone else is lost, you'll know what to do. The stars shone above. The school lights glowed. A billionaire, a boy, and a teacher sat in peace, proof that even the smallest act of kindness could change the world. Not with noise, not with power, but with $1, 1 line, and 1 heart.